I've decided to keep a journal.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pauld Casty for me, the podcast about film, culture, politics, and Paul Schrader, where we watch every film written and or directed by American filmmaker Paul Schrader and explore how they speak to their moment in this one. Show's hosted by two guys. I'm one of the guys. My name is Jake Serwin.
I'm one of the guys. My name is Ian Ryan. Can't believe who we have back on the show today. This is the Schrader half, and yet, who's with us, if not our friend, Manus. Old Manus is here.
Yeah, you're right. Old Manus, take a look at my life. I'm a lot like you were.
That's right.
Wow. And what's interesting is that guy's name is Young, but he is now old.
Oh, wow. We used to have Young. Now we have...
It's over.
Yeah.
It's over. Wait, sorry. We used to have... What were you going to say?
You know, like, now we have no Young, no Jobs, no...
10 years ago, we had Johnny Cash, Bob Hope, and Steve Jobs.
Yep.
Now we have no Hope, no Cash, no Jobs. Somebody check on Kevin, no needles in my penis. I don't know. I'm going to cut that out.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Somebody check on... Somebody freaking check on... somebody check on... Who should they check on? Somebody check on... I guess Cardi B? Because of the bees thing, you know? I guess it would have to be somebody named Bees. Cardi Bees. I'm imagining a bunch of them forming into the shape of her, like those fish in Finding Nemo who make a big fish. Remember that?
That's right. That's right. I mean, that's a type of a Bodak yellow, you know, a bee yellow.
Is that depressed horse? Anyway, it's the podcast. We're doing City Hall today. And
City Hall, half a Paul Schrader film.
And
well,
I would say
like a quarter Paul Schrader film.
I'd say three-quarters of a decent movie as well.
I was shocked. I had only heard bad to mediocre things. The first, like, 3/5 of this, I was thinking, this is good. I mean, this movie.
We'll get into it, but I think you and I are both, we both find a Grish delish. We both love a John-Grisham.
We do. We like a procedural and we like procedure. So both of these things are on screen here.
And this thing gets very Grisham. Once you get a guy in a black overcoat who is meeting with someone in an alleyway, now we're in Grisham territory. We are firmly in Grisham territory.
There
and
we
isn't
go.
that funny?
There we go. Yeah. There's a moment where in a bit of lampshading, they say, like, are you playing Gumshoe? When clearly he has been playing Gumshoe for a big section of the film.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. And then the last 2/5 are pretty bad to me. I mean, they're extremely TNT film or, like, I don't know, daytime soap or something at certain points.
Yeah, well, and then things get Sorkin-y as well.
I have written down a specific Sorkin speech that felt like somehow manifested the West Wing 3 years later. All right, but we don't talk about the movie. We don't know about the movie.
Yeah, first of all, if you'd like to support the show, you can subscribe to our Patreon, where for $5 a month, you'll get a bonus episode every other week covering Clint Eastwood movies from before Play Misty for Me, all kinds of Clint ephemera. Helps us keep this feed free, so please consider supporting us at patreon.com/podcasty for me. It's effectively like paying city tax, but for this show. And
it's a great point.
Ian will come pick up your trash.
If you really wanted me to, I might. Yeah.
Depends
I like
on
our
where
listeners. They're
especially
quite nice.
If someone lives on your street in Oaxaca.
That's a great
you would
point.
help.
I'm not going to say my street because streets are pretty short here. So this would effectively be revealing my address.
Okay. What's the name of a street that you don't live on in Oaxaca? Just like out of curiosity.
I can tell you a cross street is a pretty major street. It's called Crespo. I live somewhere near the street of Crespo. Right.
Interesting. now zeroing in assassination coordinates.
Right.
Should we do the 2 questions? Should we get into the 2 questions?
Let's do the 2 questions.
Why don't you start? Because mine is stupid.
Oh, mine is too. So
okay,
they're going to get along.
All right,
okay.
I'll start. This is in the realm. This is sort of a classic podcaster, specifically male podcaster realm that I've come to think of as
hate this realm.
Recreational pedantry.
Okay.
Of the hot dog sandwich type, but we're not talking about that. But it is sort of in the inane,
all right,
categorization of things.
I'm going to liberate this and say this is also just like sleepover talk a little bit. I feel like this is just adult sleepover talk.
Mm-hmm. And so my question is, are you still awake?
And I'm pretending to be asleep because I don't want to talk anymore.
What are you doing with your hands? He's moving around in his sleeping bag a lot. Now, yesterday, this is a little peek behind the curtain. We recorded a podcast episode yesterday, which was a Patreon episode.
We sure did.
By the way, if you'd like to support the show, do the whole thing again. No, and in between then and now, I got a haircut.
Something's happened.
And you said, before we got off the microphone, tomorrow you'll have the big haircut or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So my question to you is, when you say somebody got a big haircut, are you really saying that they got a small haircut?
Guys, so you've been saving this one, huh? You've had about... 18 hours to mull it over or something?
Yeah, well, I mean, really, what's going on here is that we've blurred the line between the word haircut and the word hairdo or hairstyle.
Or some of the word hair. You have a big hair or a short hair.
Big and short.
Pekingese or something.
The famous
ways
antonyms.
to describe the length of something.
Wait, did you say Pekingese? Did you say?
Yeah, I guess I was.
I have like a dog haircut.
Well, you say like a short hair. That's the type of a thing you say about a dog.
Oh, I don't think a Pekingese is a short hair though. They're short.
No,
they're really short.
Oh.
Short hair, I would think of like a dachshund or something.
Well, yeah, they can be short or long as well.
But they can get the hair is like really short on a dachshund. Like when it
can be.
No, I know, but when it is.
When it is short, it's so short. They have a kind of a buzz cut. Yeah, you're right. Natural buzz cut.
Fucking hell, dude.
Okay,
remind me to
answer your question.
Speaking of astronauts, I have something very funny to tell you about later in the episode.
All right. I guess, I'm going to stand by what I said. When you get a big haircut, the emphasis is on the cut. You got a lot cut off. You didn't. You got a moderate amount cut off. You look very stylish.
I got a lot cut off, actually.
Oh, you did get a lot cut off.
My guy said, "What do you want to? How short do you want to go on the sides? Like scissor cut?" And at this point, I'm like, you do this. I don't do this.
Sure.
And I was like, how short can that get?
Communicate this as well.
And he said, pretty short. And I said, okay, let's do like a summertime length. And he said, I got it.
Okay.
And then we talked about shark attacks. Because he was recently in Mexico, which is a country where you live.
Hey,
he was near
that's right.
Puerto Vallarta, which means
of course.
Port of Vallarta. That doesn't mean that exactly, but and he said that he was worried about sharks.
Did he get one of those shark bands? You can get sounds fake, but I believe there is a real one. I don't think it's the one made by the company I just said. There are these things that emit, I think, electromagnetic signals.
Anti-shark beams.
Yeah,
cool.
Basically, yes. They're shark repellent for surfers.
Shark repellent,
yeah. It is.
That's
it really
cool.
is. Yep.
I mean, that sounds fine.
Also, you don't really have to be afraid of that. This is a classic case of how afraid are you of a car accident all the time?
Yeah, I guess. Recently there was a very accomplished surfer and lifeguard and stuntman in Hawaii who was killed by a shark.
I saw that also. But the thing is, it is the type of event that is extremely sensationalized. How many people are being at the beach all the time? Many people.
That guy. And it seems like my haircut guy is at the beach pretty often, which is surprising given that he lives near me. Because we talked about vegan restaurants
like
around
an
here.
hour from the beach, basically.
I mean, yeah, unless it's 2 a.m, in which case it would be 50 minutes
like
to the
8
beach.
minutes. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for answering the question with, I think, the requisite respect and honor.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Go ahead. Your turn.
Yeah. My question is, you ever tell a driver which route to take? Do you think this has gone the way of the dodo? This comes up in our film, but it also recently came up for me in life.
No, I mean, I do this all the time because Lyft drivers and Uber drivers, they don't know how to get anywhere.
Yep.
And they have the little, because they don't have to, you don't have to have any expertise at all to become a contractor for these places. And so very often they'll ask me like directions, even though they have the little computer, their little phone computer that tells them where to go.
But I want to talk about this. I don't know that particularly the Uber computer, Uber map is trustworthy. So I don't know. It's all on them, and I appreciate their humility in these troubling times.
Sure. But I mean, it's a tragic loss of expertise. And like there was
the London cabbie with his big hippocampus.
There was an article that I read about the process of studying to become a London cabbie, and they do something called pointing, which is where you.
Damn, this guy thinks London cabs the only guy doing pointing.
No. And hey, when I say pointing, I'm not talking about what you do in the freaking bedroom.
Yeah. We return to an old classic.
Every girl crazy but a sharp dick man. Okay. I don't know. No, so pointing is where, because you have to know every nook and cranny of
you do
London, and not just the nook and cranny public house. Probably the name of one of the pubs.
Was also thinking about how that's you
have to know every elephant and castle of London.
There you go.
England. And to study this, apparently it's very it's popular to get a scooter, a moped, because you can swing your head around and navigate. And the pointing system is where you start at a specific landmark and you basically do concentric a spiral outward to sort of orient yourself, and so you know where things are relative to a particular point within London, and that's
this sounds disrespectful or dismissive, but I do think this does have the flavor of like ancestral knowledge, like something that you had to build a relationship with yourself and also kind of received from others, like the special technique for learning how to do it. I think it's nice.
I do too. And I think there is something inherently, and this is maybe closer to prepper psychosis, the type of stuff we talked about on our Mosquito Coast
Schrader non-directed episodes.
Yeah, but I do just really value someone going mentat mode and like memorizing or locking some kind of knowledge into their own brain, because
something that a computer could do in theory.
But no catastrophic event, barring unless it kills you. It can't take this knowledge from us. I have this book called The Knowledge. Hold on. It's going to be okay.
All right. Yeah.
That somebody put together. They basically tried to make like the book that in Army of Darkness, where Ash has like all those textbooks in his trunk that allow him to
look, whom among stupid guys like myself hasn't mulled this over truly for hours, like collectively over the course of my life? Which knowledge would you take back? Which would be of use?
This book is basically like it's. I think it's more of an experiment to have that.
Yeah.
Or to try to figure out like what would you put in here, but it is basically like a single volume encyclopedia of all of the things you would need to know to like, I don't know, rebuild the world or whatever. I just thought it would be cool to have.
It is cool, although based on my cursory research, always fascinating to learn that like all the stuff you think you could build, like, you know, bringing back guns or something.
Yeah.
People immediately tell you like the problem with that is you need to be able to be crafting a type of metal.
Right. It's like a refinery situation. Yeah.
Right. It's not about the mechanical construction of a gun. Any gun made out of the metal available to people in 1100 would explode dramatically, basically. So,
which is why this actually brings us to today's sponsor. And today we're sponsored by a big rock conveniently near your adversary's head. You know when you go to the ground and there's a rock like right there?
You're scrambling around blindly.
Yep. That rock is sponsored. It's sponsoring us today. Really excited about this. You know, we don't advertise for products that we don't stand by ourselves. And we've actually...
And this one, you are standing by it. It's quite close to you, and it's always within reach.
And which one of us is going to get it first? That's sort of that's part of the drama.
Big question. Yep.
Yeah. So I've given driving directions to a cab driver, or I think I was in New York once, and the guy asked me if I wanted to take this way or that way, and I was like, I don't know, take this way.
So that is like the film. Okay, yeah. That's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah. The story that I was mentioning that I'll sum up in 30 seconds, I was getting an Uber from the airport to my brother's house for a babysitting rush job. And I was in the car with a tremendous ex-taxi driver, now Uber driver, who was involved in the push to unionize Uber drivers. Nice. And then involved in the fight against the California proposition that basically made it impossible to be treated as employees with respect. And he was a wonderful man, I believe from Sudan, had been in the country about like 25 years now or something. More 30 years, like more American than I am, and effectively.
Classic, I assume he had some kind of very impressive professional degree in Sudan that is unacknowledged by the United States.
Well, interestingly, he told me, we had a while to talk, he was going to university in England. I forget which university. And his father was like, doing everything he could, maybe, to help support him there. Mm. And then he had a cousin who had come out to California who said, like, come out here, it's fun.
There's
and he
gold.
went to do it. Basically, yeah. And he was sort of like, I feel all right about it. Sort of like...
Interesting.
He was neither regretting it fully, nor was he saying that this was a great move. Wonderful man. But he also was lamenting the Uber map and was saying, feels like we shouldn't have gone the way that we went. And I checked Google and I said, you're right. We shouldn't have gone the way that we went. This is going to take longer.
I think the first cab I ever took... It was on a trip to Washington, D.C. from where I lived in California before I moved there, before I was moved there.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a cab driver who was from, I believe, Ghana, because I think this was also where I learned about Ghana. I'm like 7 or whatever. Who told us the classic thing. He was like a heart surgeon or something in Ghana.
Wow.
And
of course,
his degree was not recognized by United States institutions. And thinking back on this would also be like, if I was a cab driver from a foreign country, I would probably just be making up degrees that I used to have all the time. Like, I believe this guy, but also it would have been a good bit if he...
You have every right
was
to.
Just,
yes, that's correct.
Just fucking with us, yeah. Yeah, I used to be a astronaut.
Extremely falsifiable information, like something that's very easy to check. I was the president
of Gabon, and
I was the first guy on the moon from Africa.
Well, supposedly, when you really get down to it, every guy on the moon.
That's right. I agree. Race is not nearly as meaningful, except for when people are treated differently based on race. Treatment about race is real.
It's crazy that there isn't a movie called Space Race about black astronauts.
It's not that crazy.
No. Apple TV Plus. All right, let's talk about City Hall. Now, this is a film directed by Harold Becker from Steely Dan. No, come on, that's Walter Becker. This was released February 16th, 1996. A Valentine's Day film.
Oh, beautiful Valentine's Day film. I was only aware of one other Harold Becker movie, which is also what caught me by surprise watching the first half of this. Sea of Love, the other Pacino collaboration.
I watched Sea of Love last night. Have you seen Sea of Love?
I have not, but I'm like you mentioned before, big like cop thriller movie enjoyer, despite my feelings about the police.
Yeah.
So if you're using Letterboxd to find new police thrillers for yourself, you will learn about Sea of Love.
Right.
It's inevitable.
It's Sea of Love rips. Sea of Love is...
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, first of all, it's just full of guys, including like pre-guy
so is this
guys.
film. Yeah.
I mean, that one has there's a split credit, a credit card, a split credit. Wait, what did it expire? No, okay. It has a shared on-screen credit. Richard Jenkins, Michael Rooker.
Oh yeah, that's the good stuff.
It is. It's about this is just a different movie, but Sea of Love is about Al Pacino is a New York detective who is investigating what appears to be a serial killer who's targeting men who put like Lonely Hearts ads in the newspaper.
Right, yep, I remember learning this. Yeah,
and to try to catch what they presume is the woman who's doing this, they decide to, because like there's a pattern to the ads and so they put their own in the newspaper.
Of course.
Al Pacino and his partner John Goodman, first of all.
Ooh.
Like young John Goodman. And then they proceed to like go on like 50 first dates with women with like, and there's undercover cops at the next table like pretending to be on a date.
Okay. Is this montage? Are we talking about a big montage?
No, I mean it's more scene than montage. Right. But then Pacino starts to fall for Ellen Barkin, who proceeds to become the primary suspect. But
gotcha.
He's in love. And also, I do have a clip from Sea of Love because it's one of the...
Oh, yeah. Lay it on us.
Yeah. So, to set up, Alan Barkin runs a shoe store, like a high-end shoe store. And Pacino, because he's not supposed to be a cop when they meet, he lies and tells her that he runs a print shop. And then he comes into the shoe store and it is revealed that he's a cop because, like... somebody in there is like, hey, you're that cop or whatever.
You arrested me. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And he's explaining how he's disrespected by snooty types until they need him. And so he says this.
Let me tell you something about this. All these people in here with their rocks and their furs, they get robbed, they get raped. I'm all of a sudden their daddy. See, come the wet-ass hour, I'm everybody's daddy.
Come the wet-ass hour, I'm everybody's daddy.
Yeah, what a treat.
Yeah, and it's a lot of that stuff. And he's like, it's 89, I think, so he's sort of...
I was about to say, this is entering... 90s Pacino, which is the only Pacino people parody. They don't remember.
Well, yeah, because people don't really do like the Serpico Pacino impression. Yeah. They do the she got a great ass, you know.
Yeah,
but like
exactly, or even just Michael. This is Michael talking about Fredo's. He's messed up.
Yeah, I feel like first of all, rare Ian impression, very exciting.
Yeah.
In this one, you can sort of feel him like. Using both registers, like he does,
just trying them out.
He does the kind of guttural Pacino, but then he also does original Pacino as well.
Beautiful, nicely done.
Thank you.
City Hall, he's figured it out.
Yeah, I mean it's post Scent of a Woman. It's post Heat.
Yep.
Just barely. So he's already in City Hall. He's got at a certain point, I feel like Pacino, speaking of haircuts, I feel like he goes to his guy and he's like, just give me the auntie. Like he looks like someone's Italian aunt.
It looks great.
I mean, yeah, it's exciting to look at. I don't know if I would say it looks great. And in Sea of Love, he still has. I feel like he has like the exact Dog Day Afternoon haircut, which is interesting to see that on like
weird. Now that's an unusual
48-year-old man or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
And he's also just like so visibly 5'5".
Right.
And
one of the things I love in City Hall, he gestures talking about a short person. I forget which old New York mayor he's talking about or something. And he said, he's about, I think,
Oscar
LaGuardia, maybe. Yep. And he says, like, yeah, he was a little guy, and it's very funny to imagine.
the little flower.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
This 5'5" man gesturing to the shortness of a 5'1" man. Or something.
He's 5'1", and he like puts his hand all the way above his head. Yeah.
Yep.
Is there anybody? This is a third question, which sometimes happens. Do you think there's a good person with an airport named after them?
I mean, LaGuardia may be the ultimate. You think of the airport first, and then remember there's a guy. There was a guy.
I mean, famously in
I was about to say in Grenada and stuff. Is that the Maurice Bishop Airport?
It might be, actually.
I guess, I don't know. I mean, we discussed the complexity of the man, but he's certainly less bad than a LaGuardia.
Right. Check out our episode on Heartbreak Ridge if you want to hear us try desperately to convey the history of Grenada while talking about a Clint Eastwood movie. But there's a you can tell. I think I've talked about this before. I probably have because it's me. But in DC, you can tell someone's political leanings by how they refer to the
they call it Ho Chi Minh Airport. Yeah.
The regional airport there. Yeah, no, if they call it National, or if they call it Reagan. Because it's Reagan. It used to be National Airport, and then it became Reagan National Airport.
That's funny. That's silly. That's civility-minded stuff. I don't like that, actually. You should embrace the country that you live in its horror and call it the thing. Recognize that you live in a country that is calling an airport Reagan International Airport.
Yeah, I mean,
Dulles is like in the great hall of the worst criminals who have ever lived, and has an airport named after him.
He's in whichever part of hell is the worst part. I assume the middle.
Yeah. That's the icy part. He's having his head chewed on by Satan.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
That's fun. So City Hall, directed by Harold Becker, reuniting with Al Pacino. This is a movie we're going to have to try to figure out where the Schrader is in this.
I think we can find it. There's some clues in here for me. But
I mean, there's a lot of cooks.
Who else gets involved with this?
Well, so it starts as we got to talk about Lipper.
Regrettably, we must talk about this man.
Okay, so Lipper, there's this guy named Ken Lipper, and he was
he is the closest thing to the John Cusack character here, basically.
But he's also like not at all, because he's
not a Louisiana boy who was caught up in politics. He was like a New York
Bronx
guy, went to NYU or something.
Okay, so Ken Lipper, I don't know if I know the order of these things, but he was like, he's one of those guys who kind of revolving door style has been involved in Wall Street and New York politics.
Yes,
and
it's also unclear
Hollywood,
to me. Yeah.
and of course the Epstein flight logs.
Yep,
and
better believe it.
Yeah. So this is from a 1994 blurb in the New Yorker. It says Lipper's path to Hollywood glory. Jesus, Hollywood glory has
beautiful.
some neo-Schwab's drugstore elements to it. No, it does not. He is not like some ingenue in a tight sweater sitting on a stool. He was the deputy mayor. Fuck off.
Anyway.
Okay. In 1986, out in the Israeli desert on an archaeological dig.
Okay.
He found himself thinking he wanted to do something with writing. He had just spent 3 years on the end of a beeper as New York's deputy mayor for finance and economic development. Before that, he had put in enough years on Wall Street to become, quote, financially stable, as he primly puts it. So this guy is just like recreationally, presumably like plundering the desert for, you know, he's doing the, I mean, they're so committed to emulating the Nazis out there that they're also doing Raiders of the Lost Ark shit. They're doing...
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
They're doing find the original, the true man, the true culture.
Ra. Yeah.
Yep.
And so he says, I thought, wouldn't it be great to make a movie? Sure, man. What an original thinker. And then he gets home and he's found that he's received a call from Oliver Stone's people, like Kismet style, unless this guy is, of course, full of shit, which he probably is.
Which, that's right.
Anyway, so the Oliver Stone's team was working on Wall Street, and they identified this guy as somebody they could talk to as like a technical advisor. And so he works on Wall Street, the film, after working on Wall Street, the street. And he is also briefly in the movie because he looks like a Wall Street guy. And he decides after this, you know what? I write the movie now.
I'm Mr. Movies. I write the same movie that I was just in first.
Yes.
He writes the novelization of Wall Street, which is like a hit. People go buy the book.
So strange.
The fake book of Wall Street.
And this is a guy who's already like, whatever you want to call it, independently wealthy from Wall Street investment. So he's just writing the novelization like for fun and personal fulfillment and you know, I assume like brand growth, personal brand growth. I was going to say, it also gets you a different type of attention. Like an average person doesn't know who the deputy mayor is or somebody who works at Lehman Brothers, but they might learn who you are from the novelization of a famous film. Ian's personal brand is it's heating up right now for what he does after this. Yeah, it says JS. Yeah. He's framing me. And so he had served as a deputy mayor to Ed Koch. It's Koch, right? It is Koch, yeah, despite the existence of some other famous people who are the Koch brothers. Yeah. Well, no, I was going to say it's not Ed Koch, right? It's not one of those things where we all just like don't make the joke. Nope. No, it's not that. Yeah, he's New York City Mayor Raymond Ass. It's not funny. Grow up. No. We're going to talk lots about Ed Koch, but yes, he's the deputy mayor for him. And he apparently read the memoirs of Hadrian and Marat Sade, and an old literary guide laying out the 36 mother plots of all stories. God. Of course, you've got bechamel, vinaigrette. What are the other ones? Espanol, I forget tomato, mother sauces. Yeah. Yep. So he discusses the project with Ed Pressman, who is the producer of Wall Street. Pressman, which guy is Pressman? Edward R. Ed Pressman. Right? He's our friend from Old Boyfriends. I was going to say, yeah, and he's in Street Fighter as well as Lonely Cook. Interesting. Bad Lieutenant. He produced and Port of Call, New Orleans. And The Crow, of course, great film, great 1994 film. So he discusses it with Pressman, and then I guess Lipper is not like the movie wunderkind that he thinks he is, because they bring in some of the biggest ass hitters in Hollywood. Right. Nick Pileggi, who had written Goodfellas. To Wise Guys, and then Goodfellas, exactly. And Paul Schrader. And then also Casino. Well, I guess Casino maybe is coming out around the time they're writing this, probably. Probably, yeah. Yeah. Paul Schrader also comes in to just like be a professionally a very competent screenwriter and like, hey, fix this. Yep. And then finally they bring in Bo Goldman, who had written One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is insane. And also Melvin and Howard, The Rose, with co-written with Michael Cimino, our friend from the podcast.
Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. Yep.
He wrote Little Nikita, which was directed by Richard Benjamin, of course, the sort of director of City Heat. So,
yep,
all around. And then he does have a story credit on Rules Don't Apply, the Warren Beatty film, and he did uncredited script revision on Dick Tracy. So he's in the Beatty business as well.
All right. Yeah, with so many people involved, I did wonder who is responsible for the Sorkin-y stuff. Who is responsible for the New York, the city? A
hell of a town. On Michael and Us, there's a sort of a subgenre of film that they refer to as the politics. What a concept movie.
Yep.
Which is sort of presenting. Ain't it grand with no real like ideological underpinning. And I did want to ask you, because this movie is basically, it's a familiar arc of a somewhat idealistic, although we come in later than that, but it's a sort of an idealistic politics junkie who gets into the halls of power and then starts to have his eyes opened. And I was going to ask if you have a favorite film of this type, and is it not Mr. Smith Goes to Washington?
Well,
it's got to be, right?
Obviously, the first thing out of my mouth, you and I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast before, but wonderful film.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the great films about like the American experiment that will for a brief moment seduce you into thinking that maybe there is something to this whole crazy idea.
Yeah, this is not the same type of film, but I will say that 12 Angry Men is a film that's like, what do American institutions look like? How do they actually operate? Sort of functions in a vaguely similar way, I think.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, it's in the kind of Sorkin vein of like, let's have people give big philosophical monologues about these grand institutions, and they're not perfect, but god damn it, they're the best we've got. And look at what we've been able to accomplish.
Amateur philosophy.
Right.
If I quote Sulla or something, if I quote some Roman general who like kind of knew about politics, but also died when he was 44 and like had never eaten like a vegetable or something.
Never learned to read. Dictated all his ideas about how like the first hour of the day should be spent in silence, upside down. And it's like,
truly, okay. And then, quoting Thomas Jefferson and eliding everything that we now know about Thomas Jefferson. The first and maybe
only great mayor, Pericles of Athens.
That's from the film City Hall.
I do need to read to you from the unmade scripts section of Bo Goldman's Wikipedia page, because this is insane.
Okay.
In 1975, he writes The Legend of King Kong, an unused King Kong remake script for Universal Pictures. Fine, that sounds like a thing somebody would do in 1975. 1978, he does an adaptation of A Chorus Line to have been directed by Mike Nichols. Very interesting.
Ooh, that would have been good.
He does, he writes a script in 1982 called The Old Neighborhood, which he wrote with the intention of directing. Absolutely, beautiful. I believe this. He wrote an adaptation of the novel Monkeys,
this
1986 novel to have starred Kevin Kline and Diane Keaton. I don't know. He also, in 89, writes a script called Time Steps for Penny Marshall based on her mother.
Okay.
Hey, write a movie based on my mother. Then in 1992, he writes First Night, which is a script for the Zucker brothers of airplane fame.
Man, is
about
all over the place.
The Legend of King Arthur, Lancelot, and Camelot.
Great. Terrific.
Then he writes in 1993 untitled psychological thriller described by Goldman as a, quote, contemporary third man about a CIA agent, which he wrote with the intention of directing.
the original Third Man.
Yeah, and there's a lot in common between the sort of political moments of 1993 and like 1946. Very similar.
That's right. What is the zither of 1996? What do you think?
It's The Prodigy. Or like the Chemical
that's great.
Brothers.
Great point. You're so
Zither,
right.
he
That's so
says.
true. Yeah. Is that not how it's pronounced?
Zither. I would have said zither.
Zither. Okay, it might be zither.
That's
You're
fine.
probably right.
And then in 1995, he writes a remake of Wild Strawberries to have starred Gregory
Whoa.
Peck. And then
No, I'm loving this because this is in keeping with what we just talked about on Patreon. Somebody saying like the world needs a new Wild Strawberries. Except this is actually much crazier than saying the world needs a new Yojimbo, which is kind of like an exciting film. Wow. Terrific.
Yeah, and then he writes in 2003, he writes a movie called The Colonel and Me, which is for Barry Levinson.
Great.
About a young Jerry Weintraub's relationship with Colonel Tom Parker. Very weird.
Okay, all right.
In 2006, he writes a remake of Rafifi to have starred Al Pacino.
Whoa.
2006 Al Pacino.
I guess it's like I forget the name of the older guy who kind of like directs everybody.
It's got to be the older guy.
Yeah.
And then he also writes a script about the younger life of Howard Hughes, having already written Melvin and Howard and going on to write Rules Don't Apply. This guy cannot stop writing about Howard Hughes. He's like the who's the
seem that way.
Who's the
Plus,
Lyndon Johnson
what year
guy?
did Aviator come out? 2006?
2004.
Four. Okay.
Yes. What's the name of the Robert Caro?
Robert Caro.
Is that the guy who's written like 100 volumes about Lyndon Johnson and hasn't even gotten to the presidency yet?
Oh yeah, the power broker guy.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's
this
right.
guy, Bo Goldman wanted to be that, but for Howard Hughes. So that's just some fun other stuff. But yeah, Schrader comes in. Let's give a little plot summary from my friend Ian Ryan here. The plot summary.
Be happy to do it. Okay, so I'm trying to keep it short. Maybe we'll only digress when it's about real life stuff that's connected.
Cool.
So like you said, film opens. Immediately digressing, immediately contradicting myself. Film opens with John Cusack.
It does open.
Doing an accent that...
Oh, man. How long did it take you to figure it out? Because I thought he was doing New York for like a while.
So did I. I'm so glad you said this. And I, as we've said on the show, lived in New York for a while. So it's not like I don't know at all what it sounds like. But I just thought, that's so weird. I've seen Cusack in New York movies. Why is he suddenly doing a New York voice?
Well, there is... And we've also seen John Cusack as a New York guy who goes to Savannah, Georgia.
Correct. Yes.
But
I was thinking about that.
The Yat dialect, the New Orleans,
You're
there's
right.
a particular New Orleans accent that is like eerily New York adjacent.
Yeah.
But he's not doing that. He's doing like... Well, obviously he's doing James Carville. Like the character is inspired by James Carville. But he's not doing the Bill Hader insane and very funny James Carville impression.
No.
But like this is coming from, there's a new sort of fascination with these political experts, these non-elected like consultants who I think through the Clinton campaign,
the guys who walk don't run, as they say in the film. Right.
Through the Clinton campaign, James Carville becomes like a public figure, and I think people are interested in these power brokers.
Yep. I mean, I think we should be interested in these people. The film, again, is...
But we should be interested in them like in a courtroom, in a tribunal exactly. type of situation.
In a pursuit of... Yes, exactly. But truly, I don't know if I'm exaggerating. Does the film open with the words... New York, something like this?
It does. It's something like that. New York magic is real, and everyone uses it. Yeah,
there's a little like Rhapsody in Blue riff in the background too.
He's talking about like you got to be lucky or something, and like New York will. There's a million stories.
Yes,
and not just talking about the Empire State Building.
No, that's a great point.
Thank you.
Tall building. So this is the beginning.
Tallest building in the world.
I was so concerned about what we had been signed up for, basically. But then I really want to emphasize the film jumps into a great rhythm of basically there's this terrible event where a cop is going to meet with this hood who's related to a mafioso. We don't really understand why. And there's a kid in a kind of like a, whatever Babel hyperlink cinema type thing, but
there's a young black boy wearing
a
a Gordon's fisherman yellow slicker.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's
That's
walking
exactly
across
right.
the street with his father.
And the cop and the hood, whatever, there's a sudden confrontation. There's a shootout. The boy gets killed.
They squibbed this boy. You don't usually see a squibbed boy.
You don't. And it's tough even to watch
There's
this.
a jet of blood that comes out of the... it's the back of the kid. So it's not like it's...
Right.
Assault on Precinct 13 is one of the first shot child movies
with
that I've...
holding an ice cream cone, whatever it is.
And it's one of the... Isn't it Kyle Richards or something? It's one of the Real Housewives.
But I want to say that this run of the film, to me, is effective. It's in my retelling, it sounds melodramatic or something, but I thought it was like in a good position between like sort of excessive grit and just like, I don't know, naturalism or something.
Right. Well, then it jumps into. I think this first section is the most interesting to me because it is about like
the political response to this.
Yeah,
basically.
and
what does a mayor do? What does the deputy mayor do
as a political response? Like it's all about optics.
Well, I'm actually gonna contest that a little bit because I think one of the things that makes Pacino's character so effective is that he comes across at least as a guy who is so successful as a politician because his like natural instinct or very developed instinct is also the best optics instinct, but he doesn't come across as false to me.
No, but I mean like the movie is everyone is talking about what is the best thing to do optically.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
And he's gotta like visit the parents,
the family of the cop,
the child, and then also the cop.
Yeah.
And like the news is at the hospital.
Yeah. And the news is talking about recent concerns about being too light on crime, about is probation a sentence now, they keep saying.
Yeah. That's a single word.
Yeah. That's right. Hit him with the grammar. So obviously Cusack's character is like trying to help him look good, but also, like you said, Cusack is like ideologically pure comparatively to most of these political people. So he is also trying to figure out like what really happened. Why was the cop meeting with this guy? And then as things unfurl,
he's a fantastical figure who is both a backroom dealer and ideologically pure.
Total
innocent.
invention.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But in I think like a Grisham vein, like he's similar to Mitch McDeere in The Firm or whatever, where he's like he's a smart
going
cookie.
To work at a high powered law office and also a good guy. Yeah.
Exactly. And he's like he's given the opportunity to compromise his ethics and decides, no, I will not do this.
Yes.
Which is, of course, I guess theoretically possible, but I don't think it's ever happened.
Right. Well, I want to say this. We have at least one friend who has been involved in city politics and is a good man. And I think is aware that it's so easy for ideologically pure or at least optimistic people to get involved with this. My doubt is it's very difficult for them to advance to high levels. That's when
I think you would just burn out and leave and go work somewhere else, either for like a nonprofit or maybe just like Amazon or something. And you're like, well,
burger stand, something.
Everyone
just,
here knows
whatever.
that we're doing evil, and at least no one's pretending.
Exactly. So anyway, he is hunting down the truth. Why did this hood get probation instead of a sentence? Was there corruption in the probation office?
Right.
Maybe it goes a little bit higher than that. We're not sure.
And meanwhile,
we get the introduction of Danny Aiello's character.
Yes.
Who I think in the film, well, in real life, the man he's based on, Donald Maness, was a borough president. In the film, is he city council?
It's hard to tell. I know borough presidents were apparently like, they were a lot like the what do they call them? The 5 little kings or something in LA, the county supervisors, where there's like 5 people in charge, each
Board
of
of
whom's
supervisors,
in charge of like a population of 1 million or whatever.
Correct. Way more than even city council members.
I was looking up the other day how many states have smaller populations than Los Angeles, and it's like 23 of them or something.
Yep.
But he's the borough presidents, I believe, were basically like depowered. They were nerfed
in the 90s. They were
in
nerfed,
1990, I believe, specifically.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yes.
But yeah, he's like the boss Tweed, the boss Nass of Brooklyn.
He is. I mean, the character is great. Danny Aiello, I think.
Obviously,
he's eats up the role. He's has this little quirk where he loves Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, and he can sing every lyric of every song.
This specific part of like Italian masculinity where you can be really into like
into
romantic
opera
song.
or something.
Yeah.
Yep. Wonderful.
Right.
Anyway, so Cusack kind of runs up against him, and there's a clear sense immediately that he's corrupt, and we find out that he is friends with the exact mafioso whose nephew this was.
Yes. There's sort of 2 kinds of corruption going on here, and only one of them seems to be a problem to the movie.
One of them is more of a problem, certainly. There's the being bought out directly, enriching yourself directly, like literally you own property that's going to be turned into an off ramp. So that means
or
you'll
your
probably be
friends
paid
do
out
or whatever, and they pay for your vacations, kind of thing. Yeah.
And then there is the Menschkeit version of corruption. There's this sort of like sense of loyalty to people, friendship that is more important than doing the right thing or doing things cleanly.
Right. Loyalty.
Yes, exactly. This is precisely the reason why I dislike the idea of loyalty. I think is a misguiding virtue.
And buddy, we've all noticed. No, you're right.
Okay.
At this point, this begins the most Grisham-y part of the film, where Cusack...
They're meeting with guys who can give information,
along
and they get
with
killed.
Bridget Fonda, who is another fantastical character, where she is basically like the representative for the dead cops family.
I was going to say, yes, she works for like the whatever
the Fraternal Order of Police or something.
Yeah. And
the
she's
Benevolence Association. Yeah.
Exactly. But she is trying to find the truth and protect this dead cop's wife and kids, get them like the pension fund and
against
stuff.
The evil internal affairs men.
One of my truly least favorite tropes here.
We're going to talk about this.
Okay. Great.
But
so they, like you're saying, they work together, although sometimes nicely done at cross purpose, because this is actually a representation of, I think, what it actually means to be in politics, and in like a truly inevitable way, is that if you are acting in the interest of some people, somebody else is acting in the interest of either a bigger group or like a larger collective. You will sometimes end up having conflict, and that's doesn't mean either of you are wrong. Exactly.
Absolutely. And then just to wrap up the plot.
So they discovered that, of course, the mafioso did tell Danny Aiello's character to get this taken care of.
There's a judge who played by Martin Landau.
Been a judge the whole time, who is supposed to be like a hardcore law and order guy, but turns out he had also been bought off by a bribe. And then the big and also totally inevitable and predictable reveal is that Al Pacino's mayor character, although he is not involved in the first type of graft, he's very much guilty of the second. So he was actually the one.
And it's like, you don't ask names or whatever. And so it's the hero, Cusack's hero, who he was going to take all the way to the White House, despite
confronts his father in the form of Al Pacino.
Despite, of course, the last New York City mayor to achieve higher office being, it was like 1898
Giuliani
or something. Okay. Yeah, no, it's truly, it's no one's managed to do it. But he finds out.
This is when there's the big speech about, this. I can't believe this. That Menschkeit is horse shit. It's golden parachutes and sweetheart deals. And he tells him that, I thought you were the real thing. And Pacino sort of both sides of saying, like, I wanted to be the real thing. I was like you once, but also I realized that, I cared about my friends, and that he says, and I thought this was nice, like being in power would give me more opportunity to help people than not being in power. So I did what I needed to be in power. The classic
compromised idealists lament.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then at the end, we see that Cusack is, this is the ending of Dave. This is the ending of so many of these kind of movies.
And the music is bad. Everything is bad here. But he's running for office for, I think, city council for whatever.
He's gone all the way back down to the bottom of the ladder.
Side.
And he's going to try to do it the right way. And, he's going to lose. But he gets the girl. He's coming back next time.
Yes, exactly.
All he's got to do
New York again.
All he's got to do is find a way to smear whichever black person is running against him.
Right. Yep.
City Hall.
Yes. Unfortunate timing for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to add quickly, I don't think there's too much to talk about. When I say the cinematography is good, I'm not talking about Mishima innovation style good. I just think it looks nice.
Right. There used to be more care put into these things. It's the same thing as the London cab drivers compared to a Lyft guy. It's just
it is.
Professionally
I was
done.
also wondering if it's because I was watching this on Blu-ray quality, and on most of these types of films, I watched like VHS, DVD, or like on A&E or Spike or something.
Yeah.
So,
Michael Sarrazin, no slouch. This is a New Zealand guy.
No slouch, but unusual filmography.
Well, so he starts.
This is the cinematographer.
He's a New Zealand guy. His first film as a cinematographer was a Harold Becker movie in
Harold Becker,
1972. Yep. But then he works with Alan Parker a lot and Roger Donaldson.
Big Alan Parker guy. Yeah.
And then he
makes Bugsy Malone, the film that came up when we talked about the origins of Taxi Driver.
Absolutely, and he also does Angel Heart, which is an incredible looking, totally psychotic movie.
You brought up also,
right? Yeah. And then he goes on to do Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
Step up.
Yep.
In which he also appears as a custodian. The Matt Reeves Planet of the Apes films, all good things. The movie where Ryan Gosling plays Robert Durst.
That's right.
And then the Andy Serkis mocap Jungle Book. Nice.
I invented a little story where they became buddies on the Apes films.
No, I'm sure they did. Yeah. And also probably he learned how to use the technology let's keep doing it. Yeah. And then he also was the cinematographer on the film Gunpowder Milkshake. But
that's unfortunate.
That was when he was 79 years old. So,
That's so crazy.
Let the man do whatever he wants. But did you see his brother is also a cinematographer?
I did see that.
And he shot Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, the second one. The one with the big clanging Transformer balls.
What else did he shoot?
And of course, Unstoppable.
Yes.
One of the great films.
One of the great films.
And then similar to his brother, he's also gone on to work with mocap apes because he's shot Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla X Kong.
Yep.
Which at least I think Terry Notary does mocap for Kong, the guy who invented being a mocap ape.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Pretty cool. So, lots of directions to go here. Let's talk about Donald Mannis for a second.
Talk about Donald Mannis. Yeah.
Actually,
real life Danny Aiello. Yeah.
Before we do that, let's talk about version of this film that almost was. First of all, we
should talk about this.
Apparently at one point Tom Cruise was maybe in preliminary negotiations to star in the film.
I saw that.
I assume in the Cusack role, which would have been fine.
The firm role. Yeah.
Yes, would have been fine. I love Cruise, but also I think this would have been a lesser Cruise outing just because of the script.
Cusack, gotta reveal my parasocial relationship. He's one of these guys he's like my on-screen friend. He's also
of course,
relatively quite good politics.
Yeah,
every
once in a while he'll say something that's like sort of the protocols of the Elders of Zion or something.
Yes, correct. Yeah. But mostly critical of American empire and capitalism, which is nice.
And then but then you find out that like the guy who wrote this movie in the novelization of Wall Street was also digging in the Israeli desert, and you're like, what?
Right.
What is going on? You know, I can say that. I can make that joke.
I'm not.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I don't think anything's going on. I think it's fine.
I mean, I think weirdo freaks are being weirdo freaks. Some of them are Jewish, and plenty of them aren't.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I've never heard of it.
Okay, so Paul Schrader he talked about this in his Adam Friedman interview, where he said at one point Marlon Brando was attached to play the Danny Aiello part. Now, I had read that he was attached to play the mayor, but it makes more sense.
I agree.
For him to be the Aiello part.
It does. And this is in peak Brando on his private island in French Polynesia.
Yeah.
Largely overweight.
Right. And I believe somebody involved in this film was also involved in the Island of Dr. Moreau, the much maligned.
Yes,
but
correct.
Brando did the classic Brando thing, or just like a megalomaniacal actor thing, and told Schrader and Nick Pileggi, as Schrader calls him, I think this guy has a bongo club. And Adam Friedland says, what is that? Which, first of all, we would not say, what is that? I know what a bongo club is.
Me too. I immediately understood it, but I can't blame him for saying, like, is there another meaning to that maybe I don't know? Because it seems...
Well, I mean, I immediately understood it because all of those like actors studio guys, all the method guys, they were also obsessed with bongos. And I know that Gene Hackman and Dustin Hoffman, when they were young roommates together who idolized Brando, they would go play bongos on the roof of their apartment building because they heard that Brando played bongos.
That is exactly correct. And I love the way that he speaks about it, the actor's studio. Like, I think he does this. Like, I'm feeling out the character, and I'm pretty sure he's in a bongo.
When I think about this guy, which, first of all, at that point, was he a musicals guy? Because
I wonder that too. Is that kind of like the version of it that ended up in there?
There's no bongos in Annie Gets Your Gun or whatever.
No, there's not. Yeah.
By the
Carousel.
Way, in City Hall, not in City Hall, in Sea of Love, the Al Pacino character inexplicably and totally like unremarked upon has a shower curtain that is decorated with like Afro-Cuban musician alligators.
Whoa, cool. That's great, actually. That's so good cool. Direction.
Yeah, no, it's they're basically like the Babalu
There's
Club.
Like a story here. Yeah.
Yep. They may be New Rican. I don't know. They're Afro-Caribbean. Right. The music is Latin jazz. Definitely.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So that's fun.
And then Schrader goes back to him the next time. They're sort of like, he talks to Pileggi, and Pileggi's like, I think we could make that work. He has a bongo club. That's fine.
Maybe he takes meetings in the bongo club. You know?
Yeah, which is great. And then he goes back, and Brando's like, I've been thinking about it more. And I think he has a parrot that sits on his shoulder the whole time.
He talks to the parrot while he plays the bongos.
Yeah, he talks to the parrot while he plays the bongos.
Yeah. I mean, and I remember reading after the film The Jungle Cruise came out. May have just been called Jungle Cruise. John McCollitzera's Jungle Cruise.
You're reading the novelization.
Yes, written by Ken Lipper on the Lolita Express. And Paul Giamatti's character in that film, apparently he had wanted the character to have a monkey that sat on his shoulder and lit his cigars for him. And Disney pushed back because they don't show smoking in their movies.
Yeah.
And so the character, I believe, ends up with a parrot. But that's the kind of movie where you can be like, you know what?
That's correct.
My
it's
weird, like, Italian, like, Amazon outfitter corrupt character, he has a monkey.
Right.
But, yeah.
But then, of course, Brando reveals his true motivations because he ultimately says, what if we just got rid of the politics stuff? I feel like we found something with this guy who has the bongo club and the parrot.
I mean, the whole thing with Brando is that so often it's hard to tell from these. Like, it sounds like he's just fucking with everybody and wasting their time. But there is a kernel of like, did he want to do this?
I mean, again, we have to emphasize Brando, right. A genius actor, confusing man with some of his record, his Bertolucci film record, but the lesser of two evils involved in that story, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, but also, Brando is good, but he's not worth all this trouble. Like, I've never seen a
sure
Marlon Brando
I think he's great. He's not good. He's great.
He's great, but at the same time, he's not. I mean, I feel this a similar way with Brando as I do with about like waiting in line for food. You know,
right. They didn't invent food at this place,
right? And it's not like there isn't a place that's like 90% as good with no line nearby. Like you can replace Brando with Danny Aiello, and you're still gonna have a great time.
Right?
And Aiello's gonna show up and know his lines and stuff.
Oh, he does such a good job in this. Yeah,
he knew all his lines as far as I could tell.
He definitely
and like Alec Baldwin was gonna play the mayor character,
right? Which he would have been quite young for the mayor character. I mean, not relative to
crazy
to Pacino.
Young, but yeah, I mean, if you see the two of them in Glengarry Glen Ross or something, they're different men. So that would have been interesting. Alec Baldwin, Tom Cruise, Marlon Brando.
Yeah,
I don't know if they were all involved at the same time.
No, I don't. At least two of them were. Seems like. But then later gets passed along, obviously, and gets made the way that it was made.
And look, let's talk about, before we get into politics stuff, let's just talk about what I'm going to call Gospel Pacino, Revive Al Pacino.
He's in a black church, like an AME church or something.
Yes, he goes to the funeral. He wants to speak at the funeral for the unfortunately named James Bone, who is the little boy who's been shot to death by an errant bullet. And it's okay to make fun of this because he's not a real boy.
Right, it's Jim Bone.
It's a made up boy. But you know, everyone's telling him don't speak at the funeral because there's basically the opportunities and the opportunities to misspeak or to get people mad at you. It's just too risky.
And one of those little procedural elements where they say when he does go, they say like intel's outside. They say don't leave to the front door because like the energy, the murmuring out there is bad, basically.
Right. And he goes up and he says, they told me not to stand behind that little casket.
Mm-hmm.
And then
he's
he gets
Greek,
out
by the
behind.
way.
Yeah, he's playing John Pappas, and he's goes and walks out from behind the pulpit to stand right behind the casket, and he proceeds to give a Baptist revival church sermon.
Which is the trick. I'm glad you said revival because there are white versions of this.
Yes.
It's not total cultural appropriation, although I mean he's speaking to he's speaking to a 98% black audience here. And
I mean, obviously Pacino's fucking incredible in this scene. I mean, it's just the kind of thing where, and also he's one of 3 people in the world who could do this without making it seem completely ridiculous.
Yeah, I was trying to play a track in my mind of somebody who's not Pacino saying this.
I mean, imagine Baldwin doing it.
Right. This would have been a disaster.
Right. But he's invoking Pericles, the mayor of Athens, and talking about the city, capital T, capital C.
Right. Let's make the city great again, basically. It's what he's saying.
Is what he's saying, but he means it, and he's talking about safety. And
I have a couple of his lines because I think they're nice. I mean, he says
this scene is clipped on YouTube by a lot of people, which is interesting. No, I'm not going to play it. I just mean this is the thing. People like this speech, but yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would go so far as to say, it's that interesting mix of when does particularly like a Democratic left-leaning-ish politician try to unite all the pieces that are like going to play to the audience and also maybe be ideologically significant or something at the same time, right? So he talks about being able to walk down the streets like boulevards, that the parks will be places for us to congregate, that this will be a palace, but a palace without kings or queens, where all subjects are beholden to each other to make a better place to live. I mean, that line out of context sounds like a socialist utopia, to say that we are all one and we are working for each other, basically, is very beautiful.
Right.
Like you're saying, he is doing it. And I think the film knows, because there's an earlier point where he has like 8 black religious leaders stand behind him during a speech.
Yeah, thank you for coming on short notice, he says, like that kind of thing.
Right.
And he says like, he is me and I am him, of the slain black child.
Yep.
It's interesting also to think about, like, when your loved one is killed in a politicized event, how the funeral then just becomes like someone else's thing entirely.
Yep.
Like,
well, and also confusing because you would be mad, I guess, if there was no public response, like if the mayor's office didn't get involved, but also having them be there, like you're saying, immediately turns it into something that's not about your child as specifically your child, as like who James Bone was.
Right. It's not about closure for this community about the specific incident. It's now one of the many opportunities for this elected person to speak about a particular issue.
Yeah. And the way it's played is that the audience or the congregation, however you want to put it, eats it up.
They
the
love
dad
it.
is like won over. The dad is smiling at his son's funeral. I mean, eventually,
the performance by the actor who plays the father, who is, it's almost entirely wordless.
Yep.
He doesn't have very much dialogue, but he does do just an incredible amount with his face. I want to find the actor's name here so we can give him some credit. Ray Aranya, or Aranya, maybe. He's also in Die Hard with a Vengeance, Dead Man Walking. It seems like he's in a bunch of stuff in the 90s, but he's great, I think, in given almost nothing to do. But
yep, he is.
But yeah, he's given something
unfair to do. In fact,
right, and yeah, as you said, he's like made to smile at his own son's funeral. But then, I mean, we got to talk about race in this movie, because it's so the depiction of the police and this the specific politics of this incident are so, I mean, they're so 1996 in a lot of ways, because like there is no real fear of like, I mean, it's quickly determined that the police officer's gun did not kill the boy, and they are concerned about that. Like, they want to make sure that it wasn't the cop's bullet.
Well, they're concerned about that. They're concerned about him being a dirty cop, that he was involved in this drug deal. We've talked ad nauseum about cops just straight up like running drug operations in the 80s and 90s. I mean,
they were
in New
York. We'll talk about the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association riot and David Dinkins in just a second, but yeah, I mean, part of what set that off was what came to be called the Mullen investigation, or the Mullen committee or whatever commission, which David Dinkins set up to look into allegations of drug dealing by groups of police officers in one of New York City's most violent drug-ridden precincts. And like there was a cocaine ring operated by the cops in Brooklyn.
I forget why we talked about this, but we have talked about that exact cocaine ring.
May have been Light Sleeper or something, but yeah, I mean, the fear is that the cop may have been dirty, not really like why was this cop out meeting with this guy? Like, why was he doing this without his partner? I mean, that comes up a little bit, but it's not Not really like this cop is out of line. This is a rogue police officer just like endangering people. It's more about like, well, was he pure of heart when he was unilaterally just doing crazy shit?
I mean, I think there is even discussion of rogue cop, but it's more of like, is he one of those capital B, capital C bad cops? Or is he the good kind, the normal kind who don't over police certain communities or
is he a
have
good lieutenant or a bad
about,
lieutenant? Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Right. But like the racial tensions between black communities and white police officers just like don't really come up in the movie.
Yeah, I do want to complicate because I think sometimes the leftist presentation of like what these communities want is simplified because unfortunately lots of communities of color are also, I would say, confused by focus on law and order rhetoric and end up saying like we also want crimes to be prosecuted harshly and we actually sometimes are asking for more cops or such and such thing. So I will say that it wasn't so crazy to me that this white mayor would be trying to promise like we're going to come down harder on these types of people. Like we're going to, there's lots of mentions of mandatory minimums, whether they're good, whether they're bad. But there's a suggestion like we do need to punish crime very harshly and make sure that it's rooted out.
But to sort of conceal what that would actually look like in real life in the film, we only see Italian guys who need to have the hammer of the law come down on them.
Well, and there's the classic thing of like, instead of discussing the social origins of any of this, is emphasizing the horror of the acts themselves out of context. Saying this guy, Zapati, was selling drugs to kids and kids were he was making kids deal the drugs also. How dare he?
Yeah. I mean, there's a way that this is like, this is part of this trend in the 90s, which, we've talked about, and you and I think both enjoy this procedural trend that's, includes like the John Grisham films and stuff like NYPD Blue and Law and Order and like Homicide Life on the Street.
I mean, literally Law and Order episode 1 in this case.
Yeah. And like the revived disaster movie, the Speed and the Volcano and the Dante's Peak stuff. That is like, I think in this sort of end of history moment, I'm doing scare quotes, that there's this idea that without a major political and
threat,
ideological adversary, because the Soviet Union has failed. Now the thing that to dramatize is this like further refining the triumphant capitalist government system, where like we've outlasted communism, so now we just watch the system incrementally improve itself, but ultimately it is like it's gonna work. Like it's it ain't perfect, but damn it, it's the best we got.
Right.
And that's going on here, but I think it elides like all of the thorniest parts of that by not including the material consequences for people on the street who aren't James Bond.
That's exactly right. And yeah, I mean, any discussion of city corruption, which we will delve into in a second, the fact that it's focused on like some individuals trying to seek out wealth for themselves and it's unrelated to like a system that encourages this type of behavior, or a class of people that are able to manipulate politics in this way, and that class of people tend to be of a certain racial makeup, and the neighborhoods that suffer tend to be of a different racial makeup. So it ends up just being focused on like, our city is like so dirty to the core. These politicians don't really represent what's good. Not a reflection of any other existing institutions or like levers or something.
Let's talk about Donald Maness.
So yes, he's that borough president we mentioned.
Right. The main inspiration for the Danny Aiello character. So he was borough president. I keep wanting to say bureau and then having to tell myself not to. So, he, he's like a little local king. So he is the kind of person who gets to award contracts to... Yeah,
like a lot of land use stuff.
And this is
lot of
where so much local corruption comes from. Basically, every elected official in Los Angeles is as more corrupt than this guy, but none of them have the dignity to do what he did.
Look up Jose Huizar as a recent example.
Yes, look up, but also just look up anyone elected in Los Angeles.
Right.
The FBI is always raiding their houses, and like, how dare they make me sort of glad that the FBI showed up somewhere?
I know. Well, and not just in Los Angeles. I think like 5 of the last 6 New York mayors also, somebody related to them had their house raided, or they themselves were investigated for corruption.
It's always so, and it's always so like, it makes me so upset when someone does something illegal like this for less than $100,000. It's like, how fucking dare you?
Well, I think it's actually very revealing about a few things. One, the corruptibility of people, but also maybe how much a little bit more money does get you sometimes.
And probably also how many $30,000 checks they're getting that add up to a lot more. Yeah.
Yes, because here's his biggest operation, his most notorious operations was like a parking violations bureau racket that he had set up with this other guy named Stanley Friedman and a guy, Jeffrey Lindenauer, who was like an inside man also for this stuff. And they would get kickbacks from parking tickets. They also had a company that they owned that made handheld parking like computers for people giving tickets. So they were getting like $30,000 a year between them for the tickets. They got the contract money. They were getting paid off by other ticketing companies. I don't know how many people are involved with New York parking tickets.
I mean, I would imagine a lot. I
guess so. Yeah. So the first like big blow up happens in January 1986.
Right.
We're going to talk about that.
So yeah, there's a columnist, a journalist makes this public, and so shortly after his inauguration, this is directly from Wikipedia. Shortly after his inauguration for a 5th term, Maness attended a dinner party for the new Israeli consul at Borough Hall in Kew Gardens. It's just in the atmosphere. He left in his own car, was followed by his chauffeur up Queens Boulevard.
Yep.
Sure, Mr. Maness, that sounds normal to me. He was later found in his car in the early morning hours of January 10th. His wrists were slit and he was bleeding profusely. He initially claimed that 2 men had carjacked and attacked him, but later recanted the statement, saying he had attempted suicide. Let's carjack this guy and make it look like a suicide.
Right. Specifically, according to the Daily News article, he claimed that there were 2 men who had hidden in the back of his car and like leapt up and tried to get him or something.
Surprise!
Very elaborate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was looking in my rearview mirror to see if anyone was behind me, and just then.
Right.
Then it was like more of the stuff came out after this. And
I mean, it turned into like a full-on investigation,
like a national news. Yeah.
Right.
And now he's gonna maybe be indicted on corruption charges, and so he. As Wikipedia puts it, they convince his friend Lindenauer to basically like a plea deal where he's going to testify against Maness. No loyalty, no Menschkeit from this Lindenauer. Yeah.
But I mean, they're both guilty, so I would just say like, well, it's all bad here.
Yeah, obviously, if these guys bring their friends along. Of course, their friends are going to have some overlapping ideas about how things should go.
And did you see who was investigating all of this stuff?
No.
It's our friend Rudolph W. Giuliani.
Big time Rudy. Yeah, we're going to get to Rudy in just to Mr. Giuliani time himself.
Yep.
Apparently, Maness, as Wikipedia puts it, stayed in seclusion until March.
Yeah,
I love to stay in seclusion.
Me too, for 3 months.
And then this is gnarly.
Yeah, it is.
So then he's on the phone with his psychiatrist.
And he's a human man at the end of the day. We got to retain our empathy.
I mean, as Aiello, I think, illustrates, this is a man who loves his wife and his bird. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
But the psychiatrist is called away from the phone, and Maness is on hold. At which point he pulls out a knife from the kitchen drawer and stabs himself in the heart with like an 8-inch kitchen knife.
Butcher knife. Yeah.
And he dies, obviously. And then 3 years later, his twin brother, Morton Maness, attempts suicide.
The same type of suicide.
And no offense, how do you fail to stab yourself to death in the heart with a butcher knife?
Disagree. If you're not an anatomy expert, easy to miss the heart.
Well, but I just feel like you'll fuck something else up, and then he dies of a heart attack, like 16 years later.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it does speak to me for anybody who's ever been suicidal. It's not so much about losing your fear of death, although there's an aspect of it. It's just having emotions that are so much stronger than your fear of death.
Just like, I gotta get out of this. It's an urgency.
Yep.
I gotta say, when Aiello goes into his sunroom to talk to the bird, this is the most about to shoot himself I've ever seen anyone in a movie. And so I
also thought, well, this was one of the moments I would identify as being Schraderian.
But then the reveal when Anthony Franciosi shows up as what's the guy's name? Zapati. And he's like,
as the mafioso, the big head.
And he basically says, like, Franciosa, excuse me. He basically says, look, it's gonna be bad for you, so you can make it easy on yourself. You can kill yourself more painlessly than you will be killed by us, basically.
And save your wife, probably.
Save your wife, yeah.
This is the last great scene in the film for me, I think.
Right.
It's beautifully shot. It is like this sunroom with these 80s like bamboo reed shades or something.
Yeah, those are prominently featured in the film Kinds of Kindness. I was just thinking about bamboo shades. And like you're saying, Aiello does seem like he's going to kill himself. He's not playing it over the top. He's playing it as sort of like I guess I knew a lot of the stuff I had done would potentially lead me to this, but there's also some things I'm going to miss. Yeah. But then there's also, whenever this happens, it's sort of, it's not that it's not that we found like the one corrupt guy. It's just that one guy was stupid enough to get caught. Yeah.
Right. That's also what makes it tragic. And in fact, we talked about moral luck on a recent episode on Light Sleeper. It comes up directly. They use the famous example in this movie when the mayor later says, I've been running reds all my life. And Cusack says, but this time you hit a cop and a child, which is truly like the famous thing that Thomas Nagel says is like you run red lights. Sometimes it's meaningless. Sometimes it has dramatic meaning. Is there a moral difference? So
interesting. So
he gets caught.
And then he is driving his car, pulls over, listening to his favorite music, like the dog from the meme. And he has a folded New York Post or something on his passenger seat. He opens it. He is the front page story, but resting,
and there's a 38
hiding
on top of it.
Yeah, hiding in the newspaper about him is a gun, and he blows his brains out.
Yeah. And this was obviously a huge story for New York in real life. Part of it, in addition to just like general corruption and borough president corruption, Ed Koch was like somewhat close to Donald Maness and had been the one to appoint Stanley Friedman, this like other guy who was involved, to some public positions. So Ed Koch is the mayor character in the sense that we don't know that he knew the details of it, but he was doing enough favors that he was involved.
And Ed Koch is also the mayor that Ken Lipper worked for, but
never investigated officially, by the way. Why would he have been? Doesn't make sense.
Ed Koch also went to Rabbi Schneerson for his blessing. This is the Chabad Lubavitcher proposed Messiah rabbi.
Correct.
that Chabadnik insane Hasidic Jews they think is like the Messiah, and Cory Booker is now like in the thrall of this organization. It's very terrifying. And you and I, when we lived together, lived just around the corner from Schneerson Square in Los Angeles. Did you know that?
Did we? No.
Yeah, the corner of like Pico and Doheny basically is Schneerson Square.
I guess it doesn't matter if we say where we lived. Yeah, that's like 2 blocks from where we lived.
Yeah, I want to go pick up some of my old mail that keeps getting sent there. And then you can bring it here.
Sure.
to my address
To
and
your new address.
kill me. Avenue number.
Please don't do that.
I'll bleep it out.
There's some unwell people.
Nah, yeah, I'm gonna bleep it out. Los Angeles, California. You know, Danny Aiello was a bouncer at the Improv,
Whoa, no, I didn't know that.
and he also was
After this.
president of New York Local 1202 of the Amalgamated Transit Union, representing Greyhound bus workers.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
he was suspended for presiding over an unsanctioned wildcat strike.
That's a good reason to be suspended.
Too
Good
cool.
man. Yeah. I mean, look, between this and Do the Right Thing, he's got a lock on like types of New York guys who are both charming and deeply representative of
Right.
like what's wrong with the city, what's wrong with the United States, what's wrong with white people, all sorts of stuff.
He, you know about the Papa Don't Preach thing, right?
I don't know if I do know about this.
So he plays the father in the video for Madonna's song Papa Don't Preach,
Oh, okay.
which is about like teenage pregnancy.
Right.
And then I think out of guilt or something, feeling some sense of moral obligation, he recorded an answer song called Papa Wants the Best for You.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's crazy. We'll do a full Patreon episode on it. But I want to talk about, so the character is based on Koch, but also I think is sort of like a fusion of Dinkins and Giuliani in a very dangerous way.
I think so too. Although it's interesting given Giuliani's other most famous thing from around this time.
Planning 9/11.
That's right. He started really early.
So, well, yeah, it started in
Takes
'93.
time.
Mayor David Dinkins. Isn't it
The
crazy
guy who
that a
takes
guy
over after Koch. Yeah.
a mayor of New York City was named David Dinkins, and that's like
Yep.
the 90th most interesting thing about him.
Correct. Yeah. The first black mayor.
First black
of
mayor. He was a
New York
Democratic
City.
socialist,
Yeah.
and he was trying to be. He had been heavily involved in the Jesse Jackson presidential campaign. He was trying to. He called New York not a melting pot, but a gorgeous mosaic, I think was his phrase. So,
I think I've heard that. Yeah.
and he I think tried to do some cool stuff. He was very into tennis, and
Whoa.
his like right before he left office, he signed he like negotiated a new 99-year contract with like the U.S. Tennis Association or something, so that the the U.S. Open or something in New York apparently brings more money to the city than like the NBA, the NFL, and the NHL combined or something like that.
That doesn't seem right. But
It's
even
crazy.
if it's partly true, although USTA famously also a very corrupt organization.
Sure,
So,
but Dinkins, he ran
when he came
against
to power at like peak crime. I mean, I
Right.
think the homicide rate was literally at its peak in 1990.
and
or
it
something.
declines during his tenure. He does like bring on more cops. I mean, he does mayor stuff.
Yeah.
He's still the mayor, but Giuliani ran against him twice. I think he ran against him. He lost to him the first time. Is that right?
Right, because
Yeah.
Giuliani had taken this like demotion basically to become the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York.
Right. Which is I think the biggest
Yeah, it's considered like the highest like
U.S. attorney position
version of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, district attorney type thing.
Mhm.
And he is most famous in the 80s for the Mafia Commission. I mean, he,
Right.
as far as we can tell, did make a big dent in mafia control of New York. The five families had a vote about assassinating him that I think it was voted down 3-2, so just barely.
Sucks.
And then, it's too bad. And then the Sicilian mafia guy did put a hit out on him,
Nice.
at least according to it's like testimony later. And because he thought that maybe he was talking to like Italian anti-mafia leaders, like they were collaborating on this investigation, basically. So yeah, he's writing the coattails of that, saying like, look, I'm not just tough on crime, I'm tough on the scary guys, right? So he also tries to become mayor.
And his campaign is extraordinarily racist. Like so much of it is playing on racist fears, is linking Dinkins and Jackson in all of the worst, most cynical, racist ways. He also, because Dinkins, I think through his democratic socialism or DSA like connections, Dinkins had done some stuff in support of, or at least just acknowledging like the humanity of Palestinians. And so Giuliani went to a bunch of like Jewish organizations in New York. And also I think Jesse Jackson had said something about like Jaimeville once, which was a dumb idea.
Like that.
And so Giuliani was doing that.
Unfortunately, also representative that I think this, if I remember what I read, created enough pressure that Dinkins then like visits Israel to show that he supports them. And this is the horror of politics. This is what you end up doing.
Exactly. And then, of course, the weirdness of that, talking about IA guys like they're scumbags, like when you get a real job, basically.
Yeah.
The Patrolmen's Benevolent Association Riot, which happened on September 16th, 1992, Ian's birthday, it's not. Dinkins wanted to, so there was an agency that investigated police misconduct that was half cop and half civilian. And Dinkins' proposal was to make it all civilians because, it's...
Nice idea, although this exists in Los Angeles and is like famously so weak, does nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's at least an idea, and cops were so outraged by this that 4,000 NYPD officers, they like blocked traffic on the Brooklyn Bridge. They tried to rush City Hall, screaming racist slogans,
disproving that they might be racists.
There were 300 uniformed on-duty officers who didn't do anything. Giuliani spoke at the rally and was like sort of inflaming tensions. A bunch of people, like they were yelling, "The mayor's on crack." Have you hugged dear mayor? Have you hugged a drug dealer today? There were like obviously racist cartoon images of Dinkins on posters and stuff. Some of them called him a washroom attendant.
Jesus.
It's funny to be racist but still say washroom.
Yeah.
That's weird to me.
Old school. I mean, you just learned it from your dad very clearly.
Right.
I will say this stuff still comes up.
Right.
Our current president of Mexico, outgoing president of Mexico, who for all his extreme flaws has tried to like propose a social approach to battling cartel crime, and all of it is the same. Like, how many drug dealers are you friends with? Like, have you been to a town in your whole life or something? Just the idea that any other approach to treating these social ills means you're either corrupt or an ignoramus, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Cops, they physically assaulted a bunch of reporters. They called a black cameraman the N-word.
Yep.
At least one female television reporter was like groped.
Nasty.
And I read some accounts of this, and like people working in City Hall said this was the most frightened they ever were of protests in New York City. By the way, Giuliani in 90, I believe, when Dinkins was first elected and beat him, Giuliani was already beating the voter fraud drum and saying that like illegal Dominican immigrants had been allowed to vote already doing all the same shit.
Yeah, I want to point out an interesting pattern here also where Giuliani is the one maybe doing the correct thing and trying to battle corruption at City Hall. When he leaves the office of mayor, I think he gets involved with security contracting, then investment banking, then goes back to security contracting, then owns a bunch of businesses. This stuff should all be extremely illegal, of course, as we've discussed. You should just be barred from doing anything except like
teaching
some type of... Yes, exactly. Yep.
Teaching. And there's got to be some kind of speaking engagement cap. Like you can't make more than $10,000 for a single speaking engagement or something. Maybe $1,000, whatever you want to say.
Nah, not even. You and I talked about it. Not that I'm highlighting Singaporean politics as some type of pinnacle, but when they did their big anti-corruption push in like the late 50s or whatever it was when they took power, they literally saw people living above their means as bureaucrats as a sign that you could immediately be investigated for bribery. Just like doing anything that didn't reflect what you should be doing should obviously be grounds for at least an investigation.
Right.
And
did you buy a car? You buy a new car ever in your life? Investigate.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But I wanted to point out that for this riots, one of the things I did see is that I believe the guy who was pushing for investigation of police taint who was that?
That was Eric Adams himself.
Eric Adams, Mr. Mayor,
May
Mr.
your
Cop,
haters be your waiters at the table of success. That's supposed to be Pacino.
Yeah, that's Eric Adams.
That's Eric Adams. I mean, Eric Adams is a remarkable weirdo.
He needs to be remarked on.
He's so strange. He's so obviously stupid. He's evil too. I mean, he's
extremely evil. Yeah. The way he talks about people in his own city should be disqualifying.
Yeah. And I was looking at it, like, who are the current deputy mayors of New York City? There are a lot of deputy mayors there for various. They're it's sort of like a cabinet. Like there's a deputy mayor for housing and a deputy mayor for public safety, whatever.
Not inherently bad. You talked about Frederick Wiseman's City Hall. And
I watched some of this.
And just being impressed by the number of people who all the time have to be monitoring and keeping each other up to date. And maybe it being like a Herculean task. I also tried playing this game called Cities Skylines, which is a SimCity type hit
game.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard about it from YKS. And just 15 minutes playing this game, I was like in spiraling panic. Yeah. Thinking about how you have to set up the power grid and the water grid, but people are already moving in and they keep wanting stuff. I got a little achievement. You know how in video games they give you a little achievement badge when stuff happens? I got an achievement for having below 15% approval.
Whoa.
And I've been playing the game for like 2 minutes.
I mean, this is the part of lowercase p politics that I am sympathetic to, because it is an enormously difficult thing to achieve. It requires so much collaboration. It's so easy to make a mistake. I know, it sounds like we're maybe hypercritical, but I'm not hypercritical of the difficulty, like the inherent difficulties of these positions.
Insanely difficult. And one of the things that I appreciated about the movie is how much the mayor is treated as largely like an optics position, like he is a figurehead. And you see this almost immediately in the movie. He's giving the speech about the Japanese
exactly
the governor
minister,
Tokyo or whatever.
Right, maybe the governor of Tokyo. Yeah.
And then Cusack goes into another room with David Paymer, the great David Paymer, and the speech is on the TV next to them, and they're ignoring it to talk about logistics, which I thought was a great sort of way the movie's teaching you how to watch it.
There's lots of little things like this. It's masterfully crafted in
Speaking
that sense.
Speaking of Sorkin, we've also got what's his nuts from The West Wing.
We sure do. Schiffer, what's the guy's name?
Richard Schiff.
Richard Schiff.
Yes. That's cool. Like that guy. Nice to see. Nice to see faces like this.
Yeah, he evokes this sense, but in this film, he is playing the guy who signed off on the parole, but maybe is corrupt, or the probation rather.
But I was going to talk about deputy mayors. So
yes,
the first deputy mayor of New York City, which I think is sort of like the vice president, like the first deputy, the most mayor of all the deputy mayors.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Her name is Sheena Wright. She is a native of the Bronx. She went to Columbia Law School and then worked for Watchell, Lipton, Rosen and Katz, which is like an enormous. It's in the AmLaw 100 highest per partner profits of any law firm.
But she, if I remember, I don't have it in front of me, but she worked as counsel for like a minority-owned tech company or something.
Right.
Like,
So then she serves as president and executive director of the Abyssinian Development Corporation, which is an economic arm of the Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem, was subpoenaed because of something like the sale of a townhouse that was supposed to be intended as like affordable housing, but she sold it to the son of an NBA executive.
And she would host like team building workshops that cost $1 million or something.
Yeah, $500,000 spent on team building, leadership events, and conferences that were in like Jamaica.
This is
the
why,
country, not Queens.
Right. When we are critical of nonprofits, it's not because I'm critical of people trying to do good things, or that lots of not just well-intended, but like really great community organizers and informed people get involved with nonprofits. But
one of them may be hosting the show right now.
That's right.
And deeply regretting.
I've been involved with nonprofits myself.
Yeah.
But to get involved with nonprofits is obviously one, as our old friend Oscar Wilde pointed out, to get involved with like Band-Aids for social problems that should be addressed permanently. And two, to get in bed with these people, to get in bed with like philanthropists.
Yeah, so then she becomes the first female head of United Way.
Yeah.
She was a trustee of Columbia University, which of course we all know what that means now.
Right.
And then Eric Adams names her to lead his transition team, and she becomes first deputy mayor. And
who else is in her family? She's got a normal family.
She's got a very normal family. Yeah, her former husband was an executive at Sony.
Yep.
And there was a potential domestic violence call involving both of them. They were both arrested. And then it was reported that her family members had contacted like Calvin O. Butts, who was administrator of the Abyssinian Church, and then contacted her future partner, David C. Banks, more on him in a minute, and then the future partner's brother, Philip Banks III, who was then chief of the New York Police Department. And so her brother,
this is the crew.
Her now husband is he's a attorney and educator who is now the New York City Schools Chancellor.
Right.
And his brother was the chief of police and is now deputy mayor for public safety. So all these people are related to each other, married to each other.
This is the Menschkeit. This is the... Right. Is it explicit corruption? I don't know if they're doing this to make each other money, or maybe because they say, I know this guy, he'd be good at this job.
Well, one thing that it's not is representative of like the will of their constituents, because all these appointments are not elected because they're appointments.
Yeah. People make fun of like direct democracy or representative democracy because maybe creates opportunities for corruption, in the sense of like your votes will be bought, or your interests once you're in office will be bought. But I still don't know how it's not preferable to just, you get in there and you can appoint whatever cronies you want to whatever positions you want.
Well, this is interesting. After completing a 27-year career with the NYPD, Banks resigned from his position as chief of department on October 31st, 2014. Spooky. Citing a mix of personal and professional reasons. It was later revealed that Banks resigned after he found out he was being investigated by the FBI for having $300,000 of unexplained cash in his bank account.
Right. As they say in the film, do you ever meet a cop with $40,000? Yes. Do you ever meet a cop with $40,000 who's not dirty? No.
I mean, I've never met a cop with $1 who wasn't dirty. But anyway.
Yeah.
So these guys are all extremely nasty, dirty freaks. And I don't
De
know
Blasio, there's like no point on the line that you can't pick. He also received money from people. And then I think the official claim was made inquiries to relevant agencies on behalf of these people.
Right. I mean,
there's corruption. You're describing corruption.
The position is so powerful that anyone who wants favor is going to come like charging at you with a bunch of money and maybe a gun also. And
that's the other thing. I don't want to make light of. The film touches on the sinister side of like being involved with these people, which is maybe somewhat self-inflicted, but I live in a country where I am sympathetic to elected officials being threatened with the lives of their families and saying, what do I do now? It's not a non-issue. But
right. And so if you want to make change, one way one might decide to do that is within the system, and then you're trying to get elected, and then people are going to want to influence you, whether by money or by threat of violence or both. And so I am sympathetic to that on a smaller level, but I think once you get to mayor of New York City, it's like what's happening right now with the terror that American elected officials feel at the idea of the ICC charging Netanyahu, because as soon as you open the door to the idea that leaders of Western countries could be charged with the crimes against humanity that they all commit, all of a sudden, everybody's going to jail.
This was a recent huge deal where in Mexico there was also like discussion of a referendum of should we be able to prosecute ex-presidents for things that they were involved with, and the answer I think is clearly yes, we should be able to prosecute elected officials. Obviously I don't like prison, but I like they should be going to live on the...
What about the raft from Marvel Comics?
I was about to say they should be going to live on a pleasant but isolated prison island until they learn how to participate in society. Maybe.
They're the only human, and all their neighbors are animals who each have a special catchphrase. That's
exactly right, yeah.
I mean, I guess we don't really need to get into Giuliani time specifically, but like, I was just looking up instances of the New York Police Department actively harming young black men on purpose, something that is completely avoided within the film. There's more than one incident of NYPD officers raping black and brown men with broomsticks.
That's correct.
Under Giuliani. Yes. It happens more than once.
I think we also have brought this up for whatever reason in the Clint Eastwood period. Yeah. It's a position that encourages brutality. They're racist before they get in there. They're made more racist. Yes.
They don't live in the city. They all commute in. So they view themselves, they're all Travis Bickle. They think that
exactly right. They're cleaning up the nasty streets.
The turds and the skunk or whatever he says. We'll bleep that. Yep. Bleep that with my address.
Okay. My final thoughts, a few. One, I mentioned that I appreciate Fonda and Cusack's characters butting heads over like what is the important thing to do now. And to me, this is instructive about the importance of having not just like a vague ideological underpinning, but an actually developed sense of what your goals are and what you're trying to serve. Because I think that's what becomes your like lighthouse on the coast, because you're saying, okay,
Castle Rock.
That's your Castle Rock entertainment. Yeah. Where you say, look, I want to help these people, but what is our ultimate goal, and does it serve that ultimate goal? Should we be prioritizing some amount of short-term mutual aid, whatever? I'm not even telling people what conclusion to arrive at, but if you want to participate in politics, the good version, the polity, this is what you have to figure out, instead of just saying, I want to do good for people, because that's where you get lost. That's where you do that. And also talking about what we could actually do for corruption, there's all sorts of wonderful ideas. Education for the general populace reduces corruption. Multi-party systems reduce corruption, because then you don't have like lesser evilism where one democratic organization can run everything. I mean, capital D, Democratic Party organization. Bans on stuff working in sectors related to the office we've talked about. And then also places have had like all the finances of elected officials just held in trust for the time and like a 10-year period after.
Sure.
And you're basically just allowed to have like a savings account or like a checking account that you use besides that. And I think, why not? This is not an invasion of your rights. You are taking on the responsibility of, like you said, sometimes 1 million people. So maybe we should look at your finances.
Sometimes the mayoralty, I don't know, the mayorism of the New York City is called the second hardest job in the United States after the president. And it's like,
right.
You guys heard of like sewage treatment plants and stuff? Like, it's tiring to be driven around and have to give speeches all the time, but like,
there's a lot going on.
It's harder than my job, but also
yeah.
Get over yourself. Like you have dinner a lot.
Right. This is the problem. Thinking of yourself as a hero also opens the door to justifying all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
So, as we say on the show, and Ian will agree with me on this, all living mayors of any like major city, and we're not talking about the dog mayors from Wyoming or whatever, but living mayor from any major American city, French device. Let's get that thing off.
Start fresh. I mean, countries that have eliminated corruption have also kind of just done that, where they say like everybody who's over 40, you're just out. You just can't, because like if you're that deep in, we just got to start over.
No, I don't think basically. We should. I don't think we should guillotine anybody, but we should probably just like respectfully remove them from office in a way that we provide them something else to do with their time and to support themselves to a reasonable level.
Yard duty is important.
Get some new people in there.
Yeah. Yep. Minor stuff. Nice looking lemon pudding on screen here. Lemon pudding representation.
We got the lemon pudding. We got the regional regional rail. We love.
Oh, I took a note. I got extremely, as stupid it is because it's a like New York movie.
You were the girl on the train.
I was feeling very nostalgic for taking a regional transit train in the snow, like a Metro North train or whatever. Sure. That was very nice.
Yeah.
And then you're going little touches.
To beat Haley Bennett to death under that bridge. I think that's what happens in that movie.
No. And then the movie is not artistically experimental at all, but there's like these little moments where Danny Aiello is whispering wordlessly to his wife in the musical that doesn't accomplish anything. There's no like little dubbed in voiceover. It's just him leaning in and saying something to his wife, and I think that's nice. These little touches in the film are good. But
what if they were seeing Avenue Q? Put a different flavor on it, you know.
Yeah, everybody's a little bit racist. This being sung, or one of the things about sex.
The internet is for porn, I think, is a song in that.
That's right. Yeah.
I saw Avenue Q on Broadway.
So did I. Yeah.
And my parents were, delightedly embarrassed by all of it.
Sure. Yeah.
Look, we can't get into how I feel about Broadway musicals, but there's some fucked up shit going on. I keep every day on my way home, I drive past the Pantages, which is the big Broadway theater, or the theater in LA where all the big Broadway touring shows come. And
Phantom of the Opera there once.
I saw The Lion King when I was a little boy. But apparently there's an Avatar: The Last Airbender musical coming to this.
Buying a ticket to Los Angeles right now.
Yeah. You want to see like, I guess like probably like a short 26-year-old woman with her head shaved playing Angus or whatever his name is.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I do.
Did you watch the Netflix show? I caught my coworker watching that at work, and I was like, normally I'm all for time theft, but if you're watching this, I'm telling somebody.
I think I have the big brain position of having not only a nostalgia, but appreciation for it as like smart children's television.
Sure.
Interesting children's television. And that's it. The original series I'm talking about.
Right.
And I don't need to.
Yeah, I didn't actually tell anybody about it. My support for time theft is like as vast as grains of sand on the, yeah. But it is embarrassing.
But it's a Harry Potter thing where people have just forgotten what's real life.
Right. And same with my coworkers who watch House of the Dragon during the day. It's like that's also for babies, even though they say fuck and they have brothels or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's okay to watch stupid TV and have fun if you know what you're doing.
You must be watching Frasier. You must be watching the smartest show about the smartest man, Frasier.
two of the smartest guys.
I did try to watch some of Frederick Wiseman's City Hall at work, and people kept coming up to me to ask me stuff about.
Okay.
You know.
I'm imagining that Eric Adams may also be watching City Hall too, to figure out what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah. He's dictating his notes from the movie to somebody next to him. He's got an amanuensis.
Yes. Yep.
Everybody go to google.com and type in Eric Adams sword right now
to
see the photo of
Yep.
Eric Adams with the Sikh members of the Sikh community, and they're presenting him with some kind of a sword that has his name written on the blade. Pretty good.
I would say he is doing his best to match what he believes to be the desired intensity of the event.
Yeah, he looks like he's posing for like an album cover.
Yeah.
One last thing.
Sure.
And that's, of course, the sexual obsession check-in. Recently, Paul Schrader was talking about his next project, had this to say.
I've never written a script about sexual obsession, and so that's the one I'm doing now.
Of course, we here on the show are working to determine how many of the films Schrader has written that are not about sexual obsession. He didn't really write this movie in the same sense.
Yeah, he wrote a bit of it. We don't really know. Yeah.
But this is a deeply sexless film, actually. And I would say
as Sorkin films tend to be, or Sorkin type stuff tends to be. Yeah, it's
so
the energy is also effective. I don't know that this is on purpose, but I believe it represents what elected officials believe they are doing, sort of in terms of like the cleanliness of it. It's like it's shot with civility or something
in that sense.
Yeah, it is perverse in the sense that there's misunderstanding of what's happening.
Right. It has even less sex than a John Grisham movie, where sex is something kind of like that professionals try to balance with what's really important, which is the law.
Right.
Specifically, the law in Memphis, Tennessee, most of the time.
Exactly. Or like the Constitution specifically. Yeah.
It's outrunning Tobin Bell.
Right.
It's coming at you with a weird briefcase. Yeah, no sex.
That Pelican briefcase. There's no sex in this.
Which is about like drilling for oil. The Pelican briefcase. Speaking of the Pelican brief, some ideas in that film that I think somebody might take to heart given recent events.
Yep.
Which ideas? You'll just have to.
We're not to say.
Yeah. And it's whichever ones are okay to say.
Yep.
Wink. We should get a wink sound effect. You know? I guess I could
that was good,
use
man.
that one. Thank you again to Ian Ryan for joining us today on the show.
Sure. It's short notice, but I was happy to do it.
What's he thinking about? I guess an email for Martin.
Oh.
Short notice.
Short notice. Yep. Just got there. Nice.
Me when my phone says it's going to be hot outside. Short notice.
Yep.
You wearing short pants? What do you got on?
Oh, I got a big. You know what?
What's he got?
Immediately knocked over my chair.
Yep, that's a nice short. Oh, he's showing me his. You have a big rip.
That's right.
In your shorts. Was that your underpants that I saw? Did you knock your chair over?
I did.
Jesus.
Those were my underpants. Yes.
That's nice.
Those are my little for me shorts.
I mean, I'm wearing like a house short.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is pretty close to my skin tone, and so I can't really go outside in these. It looks like I'm bottomless.
It's true.
There's a moment in Kinds of Kindness where a character stands up and is revealed to have been wearing shorts during the scene. They got a laugh. It got a big pop in the theater.
Awesome.
It was pretty funny.
It's funny. It's very funny.
Shorts are funny.
Yep. A gasp.
It's Willem Dafoe, who's our friend from the show. I should say also, Jeremy Allison, who does the art for the show, sent me 2 photos that he found on like Getty Images or something from the premiere of Oliver and Company.
Okay.
And one of them they both feature big like furry mascot costumes of, I guess, characters from Oliver and Company. They just look like kind of off-brand dogs and cats.
Right. Oh, off-brand dog. Damn.
Yep. One of the photos has it's Willem Dafoe with a little boy at the premiere, and the other photo also with a child, none other than Patricia Hearst.
Whoa!
At the
what the
premiere of Oliver and Company.
Jeremy Allison doing really important gumshoe work.
Exactly. He's the gumshoe himself. I had gum on my shoe at the movie yesterday at Kinds of Kindness, and I kept kind of like pulling my heel off of the floor because it felt weird, and then I realized it was making like a little noise. So it was probably bothering people.
And you were sick with worry.
They were trying to see how many haircuts Jesse Plemons is going to have in one movie. The answer is 3. It's an anthology.
Good for him.
Big haircut, small haircut. Who's to say?
Yep.
Remember to subscribe, rate us, write a review. It helps us on the algorithm. If you like the show, tell a friend, tell your dad, tell a bunch of people at the funeral for a small child.
Tell an independent investigation commission.
Yes, exactly. Tell the IA. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Pauld Casty for me if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, or you're interested in co-hosting a 2-person Paul Schrader podcast. You can email us at podcastyforme@gmail.com. Thank you to the aforementioned Jeremy Allison for our artwork. Next week, we will be coming at you thick with stuff to say about the film
Touch.
Yeah.
Bridget Fonda coming back. I'm so excited. And I want to put the fears of our true Schrader heads at ease. I know you guys you're close to tears because you believe that we have skipped an important entry in the Schrader filmography. We will be covering Untitled New Blue on a Patreon episode.
Yeah, we'll do a full Patreon episode about... No, I think he's done like 1 or 2 other like videos. There's the one where he has all the GoPros attached to him. Have you seen this one?
No, but I know what you're talking about.
So we'll do like a little wrap up or a little
yes.
Yeah. But yeah, come back next week for Touch. Till then, as we always say at the end of the episode,